So coming off of the previous chapter, we came back to the confrontation between All Might and All for One. All Might is currently trying to stop All for One from reaching UA, because if he makes it there, he'll be able to fuse with Shigaraki, merging the two All for One quirks, but also, gaining Shigaraki's body and becoming all powerful. So powerful that he'll be able to take One for All from Izuku, something that he wasn't able to do before because he just didn't have enough hatred. But once he takes over Shigaraki's body, he in theory should have an adequate amount of hatred to be able to use his own All for One quirk to finally take One for All. So yeah, All Might doesn't want that to happen, and since most of the other heroes are out of commission or have been defeated at this point, All Might's like the only one left. Like quirkless All Might, only one who can stop All for One at this point, or at least slow him down. And he winds up using like this robotic armor suit that he calls Armored All Might. This is actually made for him by Melissa in America. Melissa is the daughter of David Shield, All Might's friend that he met in America during his time that he spent there training after Nana was killed by All for One. You can actually see all these characters in the first movie. It's so good. It's definitely the best My Hero movie, maybe one of the best battle anime movies ever. It's so good. But this suit is incredibly powerful. Like, that's kind of an understatement, because we saw that All for One had just taken care of most of like the top 15 heroes by himself. And All Might, using this armor, quirkless nerfed All Might, is wrecking All for One. I mean, he's not in a situation to like completely defeat him, of course, but he's doing just as good, if not better, than all of the other heroes individually did. I mean, aside from like Endeavor, but he had freaking Hellfire quirk. But aside from like his durability to take All for One's blasts, like not even Gigantomachia could like take one of these things. He has multiple support items that assist in his style here. And they're all based off of his students and their quirks. And I always liked how that was like coming full circle, because All Might had inspired so many heroes, and now the heroes that he inspired are inspiring him. Sorry if I sound like a broken record, guys. I know I've said that a few times now, but I just really do like All Might. He's my favorite character in the series, and I appreciate that he's having his one final moment here. It's better than nothing, to be honest. But coming into this fight, you're thinking that he's just going to die because of, first of all, the huge imbalance in power, but also Night Eye's prophecy, going all the way back to the Overhaul arc, where he foresaw All Might dying like a horrible death, and we've been waiting the whole series to see if that was going to come true or not. So if there is a point where it's going to come to fruition, it's in this battle. I mean, there's a chance that it's not, but it seems like the perfect place for it to happen. But All Might isn't expecting to lose here. Like, he's going into this battle trying to win. Like, he's not just aimlessly sacrificing himself so that Izuku has more time. And coming into this chapter, as he's beating down All for One, he says, "This feels wrong. I'm over 55 years old, I shouldn't be beating up a young lad." So young lad referring to All for One because he's been rewinding, using like a reverse engineered variant of Eri's quirk that Yujiko was able to make for him, but it like perpetually rewinds him, so he will eventually die, like turn to nothingness. So he is on a ticking clock here, and he originally was like, I don't know, like 100 something, and now it's rewound him back to like, I don't know, maybe his college years or maybe his high school years. Maybe he's like a teenager right now. But as for All Might saying that he himself is over 55 years old, that's pretty crazy, because we never heard that before, I'm pretty sure. I've always tried to figure out All Might's age, and if you do the math and like collect context clues and everything, you will come around to like 55 or over 55. So yeah, I mean, it is somewhat accurate. I mean, Horikoshi would know, but also just, reminds us that All Might is pretty old. I mean, not that old. He's not like a senior citizen, but in the My Hero world, he doesn't seem like he would be that old, but he's been on top for like over 30 years. Like, that's why the world has warped the way that it has, because of All Might. It wasn't like he just did this in like 10 years. It took him multiple decades to completely change the world, for the better and for the worse. Of course, making it a better place and reducing the crime rate to near zero, but also making the world reliant on him. Because as we've seen, since he was nerfed, everything has been falling apart. But going further, All Might says you've been falling victim to the overwhelming hatred you've cultivated so you could steal One for All. So All Might knows that All for One hates him. Like, All For One rarely shows emotion other than like being cool, calm, and collected and making these corny jokes and, you know, being maniacal and like smirking and stuff. But only All Might really makes him lose his cool. So All Might is finally using that to his advantage, and he's talking crap on All For One. Like, he's trying to distract him with trash talking, you know, make him frustrated and have openings that he otherwise wouldn't have, because that's what All For One was doing to All Might in their previous battles. Like, I'm pretty sure Gran Torino tells All Might during his fight with All For One in season 3 that All Might got hit in his stomach, you know, the thing that nerfed him, by All For One because he let his guard down because of All For One essentially talking crap. Like, he was saying something to All Might, and then that gave him the opening to hit him in the stomach with whatever he hit him with. And we also saw All For One doing it to All Might in that very fight as well. So now All Might's not only learned from his students, but he's also learned from his previous battles, because instead of just running after All For One and beating him down with fists, he's now mentally going after him. And he's like, Demon Lord, funniest joke I ever heard, even a quirkless man can take you head on. Demon Lord, of course, is like the moniker that All For One always refers to himself as, because when he was younger, he was really into comic books, and he liked this one comic that involved a Demon Lord. Then we see a frustrated All For One use spring-like limbs, physical boost, air cannon, rivet stab, dark ball, and light dust. All of these quirks in unison, and creates like this massive blast. Like, it's so big, it's blowing away like multiple city blocks. Like, one of the craziest feats we've seen in the series. And All For One, of course, is just casually capable of this, but All Might apparently is casually capable of surviving this thing. I mean, yeah, it expended one of his valuable utilities here in his Auto Guard Dark Shadow cape, which is, of course, in reference to Tokoyami. But this thing was strong enough to survive that blast from All For One. I mean, it was like a one-time use, but still, this thing would take out essentially any character in the series. And as for all of the quirks he used to create this blast, it still doesn't narrow down exactly what these things are. I mean, we can see the black balls and the air cannon, but like, what is light dust? And what is making this electricity that we always see with All For One? Especially since he's rewound back. He's regained like large amounts of this black lightning. Like, we saw it sometimes when he was going against All Might in season 3, but we predominantly saw it when he was going against Nana in that Two Heroes flashback. It's probably just Horikoshi making a cool aesthetic here. Probably shouldn't read too much into it. It is pretty much part of the course of like top battle manga at the moment to have like some kind of like black lightning associated with your powerful characters. I mean, literally like the big 3 right now all have this in some capacity. Like, One Piece has Conqueror Haki Lightning, Jujutsu Kaisen has like Black Flash, but also just, you know, you could be powerful in Jujutsu Kaisen and your cursed energy can emit like this black lightning. And then of course we have this coming from All For One, and I'm sure Izuku will probably have something like that too. I mean, he already has like the green lightning, but I'm sure it'll be different and thicker as the series goes on. But after All Might takes this blast, we see that a lot of his armor has been damaged, and that he activates maximum motion assist. So I guess this is like his last hurrah. Like, his suit can only really last, I don't know, 1 or 2 more sequences after this. And All For One is like walking him down. He's like, you're a worthless piece of crap. Like, he's really angry here. This is the most emotion we've seen All For One convey in the series. And he's like, tools cannot surpass their limits. And then we see All Might remembering talking to Izuku about this. I think this might have been season 3, where he says you can't rely on your support items too much, especially if losing it makes you feel helpless. Like, he's seen plenty of heroes fall into that trap. So I guess this is going to come into play with All Might here. Like, I think he might lose access to this, and then he does something to capitalize on All For One. I don't know if he'll straight up defeat him, although I think it would be fitting if he does. It's just that we need to see All For One fuse with Shigaraki one way or another. And I do think that will end with Shigaraki becoming the dominant personality, but I just don't have high hopes for All Might sealing the deal here completely. Like, I think Shigaraki will be the one that completely kills All For One. But then we see this flashback of All Might as a high school student with like in the aftermath of Nana taking down like all of these villains, and we see All Might holding like a pipe, and Nana's like, you know, were you planning on taking them down with that pipe? Of course, referencing to all of the support stuff that's been going on here, and All For One saying tools cannot surpass their limits. But I think this also might be the first time that All Might met Nana, something that we didn't see before. And then of course this led All Might on his hero journey and receiving One For All, because at this moment he's quirkless. Well, I mean, in the flashback he's also quirkless presently. But coming back to the battle, we see All Might landing a blow to All For One's head, and All For One's like, I didn't fall for your pathetic plan, you hear me? And he's like, I'm gonna win no matter what. I have extra time to take you out, so, you know, don't worry about it. I'm not mad. But, you know, he obviously is. And All Might's like, you know, stop making excuses. And that's where the chapter ends. And like I said, I'm really curious to see what is going to ultimately happen with this, because I just don't think narratively wise, All Might can take the final W here. I mean, I'm sure he'll have some kind of W, but it won't be a super satisfying one, I think. But let me know what you think about this in the comments. And if you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.